Welcome to tonight's event on Future Media. And now, your moderator for the evening, Lauren deLisa Coleman.
Okay, we're going to finally get started. First of all, thank you so much for coming. I'm really excited to be able to see everybody here. Shout out to everybody who is watching right now in real time on Zoom or who will be watching on demand after. So as you know, we are here tonight about future media. So what is future media? And for those who don't know, I am, as they said, Lauren deLisa Coleman, and I'm what's known as a future media architect. That means that I am out here creating events, analysis, discussions, and so much more on future media. That is the intersection of emerging technology and mass media and entertainment. And in emerging technology, we're talking about the megaverse, 5G, AI, Web3, and of course, NFTs, and how that all is powering so much within communication. And communication, pop culture, mass media, and entertainment is so very, very vital because it is shaping our popular culture, what we think, our norms, our values. Even if you don't think so, it's all impacting your subconscious. So as all of this kicks up, it's even more important to be able to have discussions and bring various thought leaders to talk about how we're creating this whole new world. So I do this in 3 ways. I have an agency that does concept marketing and strategy around this for clients. I also have my own AI startup that I'm working on. But tonight, I'm here in the capacity of being the co-founder of GameChange, which is created to support women of color, all colors, working towards leadership positions at the intersection of emerging technology and mass media. So this is one of the events. So again, thank you so much for coming. Let me give you really quickly format for tonight. So we're going to do a quick fireside chat for about 15 minutes, and then we're going to move into our panel for about 45, following with Q&A for about 15 minutes, and then we'll have a closing video. And then at that point, I will ask you to please move up and out of the amphitheater pretty quickly because Samsung has another event right after ours at 7, so we got to kind of keep it moving. That's a perfect segue into a couple of quick thank yous. I do want to thank Samsung so much for just collaborating with us. Their whole team, the AV team is insane. Their agency, Chael, this amazing space that you see. Also Wafer, who is head of events here. I want to thank her. I want to thank Super Momos, who is a killer partner in terms of cross promotion. Definitely download their app if you would like to, supermomos.com. And of course, Team GameChange. So without any further ado, I think we're going to get right to it. I would love to be able to welcome to the stage my first guest. His name is Vivek Ramaswamy, and he is my kind of spice for the evening. I find that a lot of times there's too much kind of groupthink all about like the future and culture and media. And Vivek is anything but groupthink. So let me please welcome to the stage New York Times bestselling author and really just the brain behind Strive Asset Management that we're going to hear all about. Vivek, thank you so much for joining us. So we only have Vivek for a few minutes. He's so fabulous. He's going to be on the run to another event for his next book, but we're going to start talking right now a little bit about his first book or his previous book, and then again, Strive Asset Management. And really, I invited Vivek to be able to talk to us about really kind of like the soup of all of this, right? So culture, social change, politics, corporations, how do we all kind of navigate with that as it intersects with future media? There's really so much going on, and Vivek is very much a thought leader, I think, in the highest sense of the word, because he's really looking at culture quite broadly, even though sometimes said to be controversial. You'll make your own decisions. But let's start right now, I think, by talking a little bit about the book, what kind of brought you to write this book, and then how it kind of seemingly beautifully like kind of just melds right into Strive Asset Management. I want to just say a quick disclaimer before I say the title of this book, because like at the Black People meeting probably about a year ago, I'm joking, but it was like, we cannot say this word, anymore. It is certainly overused. And I'm not even certain if it's used in the original context in which it was, intended. I know that you referred to it coming out of the civil rights leaders. Essentially, I first remember encountering it around Occupy and all that in 2008, and really coming out of hip hop culture, maybe resurrected from civil rights. But anyway, the book, and I just want to make sure I get the title specifically right because I love it. It is Woke Inc. And I will let you actually fill in the rest of it, because I love this part. And this is what drove or kind of attracted me to this idea of social justice scam. I have to say that I read about Vivek kind of kicking off Strive Asset Management on a day where I was very challenged myself talking to corporations about being able to gain support around GameChange, and not for handouts, because we have a full-on business model. But a lot of what was said on corporate websites, I found not to necessarily be quite true when we started, having any conversations, if you could. So you popped up, and I was like, I have to find out more about this man. So dude, tell us more about Woke Inc., your book, and just how this all comes about.
Yeah, sure. And thanks for the opportunity. I think you're right, as a side note, that the word woke has undergone a transformation to actually, I think, be diluted of what it initially referred to. I think, as I say in the introduction to the book, it is a call on people to wake up to otherwise invisible, to be alert to otherwise invisible social injustices. And the emphasis of the book was equally, if not more, on the ink than on the woke part. But what I describe in the book was a cynical arranged marriage between a progressive movement in this country and big business. And one of my theses is that this is an arranged marriage in which neither side quite loves the other. In fact, each member of this marriage has secret disdain for the other. And no marriage in which each party has scorn for its partner is going to end well, but it works as long as each side gets something out of the trade. And so the book is about this arranged marriage that, you're right, that was born in the wake of the 2008 financial crisis. And just a word about my background for most of you I don't know. So I actually started my career in biotech investing here in New York at a hedge fund in the fall of 2007 on the eve of the 2008 crisis. So I had a front row seat to this. There's a book that earned an honorable mention in Michael Lewis's The Big Short book, all that stuff. I went on to found a biotech company, built that for 7 years before stepping down to write this book first and then a second book. But anyway, what happened, I think, in the 2008 financial crisis was that not far from where we are, Occupy Wall Street was on Wall Street's doorstep. And if you're Wall Street, Occupy Wall Street is a pretty tough pill to swallow. What the old left said was that we want to take that money from those wealthy corporate fat cats, those bankers who got bailed out at the public fisc, and redistribute it to poor people to help poor people. And there was the birth of this new wing of the left right around the same time that was in tension with the Occupy Wall Street left, where what they had to say was, it wasn't quite economic injustice or poverty alone. It was racial injustice and misogyny and bigotry and climate change and related other issues that we need to focus on. And what Wall Street recognized, and eventually big business in this country recognized, is that that is something we can get on board with, right? We will stop talking about, we'll talk about systemic racism all you want, as long as you stop talking about systemic financial risk. We will muse about the racially disparate impact of climate change after you fly in a private jet to Davos. This is good work if you can get it, but we're not going to do it for free. And it came at a cost. And the book is in some ways exploring the various costs at which that came. The cost to business itself, the cost to democracy in substituting the judgment of citizens on these important questions with the judgment of corporate members of boards and executive offices, and then even the cost to the progressive movement itself for having sold its soul and really have a bastardized, hollow out husk of it left that had really sold out to the party that needed to finance its interests. And so anyway, at a very, very high level, the book was about this cynical arranged marriage the birth of what I called somewhat provocatively the woke industrial complex in America. And I think that that has been good for neither capitalism nor democracy. And my core concern was reviving both by separating one from the other.
So essentially, your position, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm hearing and understanding from reading part of the book and so much more, and I do intend to finish it, is really that there should be almost, I guess, what we would call separation of church and state. So in your point of view, that there should be a true separation from any type of social consciousness at all from corporations, to just focus on what corporations should do. And what we're having now, though, and for me and for those, I would assume in attendance as well, for media companies specifically, kind of to bring it into that space, there are many which have, these kinds of, points of view and kind of data around the fact that this has to be joined and married together, yet we may not be seeing quite the progress that we thought would happen or would. And so you're looking at it from really, I think, a business perspective of how it's kind of clouded and not necessarily benefiting one side or the other. Hence,
neither, in fact, yeah.
Hence how Strive, from my understanding, kind of came about, right? You looked at the landscape and saw BlackRock and others, which have major investments in most media companies, and you thought that this was like something where there could be change. Talk to us a little bit about the birth of Strive then.
Sure.
From the philosophy of the
book. So I thought I was done with businesses, right? So I founded a biotech business, thankfully had some success in that career. Thought I was hanging the jersey on a business career, moving on to, writing books, which I quite enjoy. What I came to notice was that you can only drive so much change by shining a spotlight on a problem or talking about it. But this is a problem in the market. And I'm a big believer that if you see a problem in the market, someone ought to solve it through market solutions. And so I tried to convince someone else to start a business to fill this vacuum, maybe existing asset managers to fill this vacuum. And when no one did, I said, okay, we're going to do this ourselves. So Strive is a new company I founded this year. It's an asset management firm that aims to compete with firms like BlackRock and Vanguard. And for those of you who don't know, the three largest passive asset managers in the US are BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard, who manage over, or as of earlier this year, at least over $21 trillion. That is more than the GDP of the United States, controlled by three firms. And the essence of the problem that I wanted to tackle was that these three firms were using the money of everyday citizens to advocate for political and social agendas in corporate America's boardrooms that many, if not most, of those everyday citizens actually disagreed with. 401k accounts, retirement accounts, you name it. It's a fiduciary breach. I think it's a form of financial fraud. I think it's probably the largest scale financial fraud of the 21st century, happening at a $20+ trillion scale in the hands of just the top three firms. And so Strive was the new firm that I founded that said, you know what, we're going to launch index funds. For those of you who don't know, index funds are passive investment products. That means you're not picking individual stocks to outperform the market. You just give people a chance to own the market. But Strive delivers a different voice and vote to the table, because the people who, you raise money from you through their index funds, you're entitled to a financial entitlement when you own a share or a fund. But what most people don't know is you also get a voice and a vote that goes with your financial rights. And what you're doing today, if you're investing in an index fund, is you're handing over that voice and vote to someone else like BlackRock or Vanguard to exercise that voice and vote on your behalf. Yet all of them were representing one monolithic view wrapped into the so-called ESG informed perspective. And so what Strive does is we vote shares and we advocate for capital owners with a different agenda that tells companies to focus exclusively on delivering excellent products and services to their customers without focusing on any other agenda. And for those capital owners, everyday citizens who want that voice represented with their capital, to create choices for those Americans to own the market. And if you did want to advance an environmental or social agenda, that's totally fine. It's a free country and everyone should be free to do what they want with their capital. Strive would not be a good home for your money. Maybe somewhere like BlackRock would. And so that was the premise behind the founding of the company.
So let's talk a little bit about, because almost right out of the gate, you were like, right on CNBC and others talking about this. You sent letters publicly, both to Disney and Apple, and tell us a little bit about, those letters and what the response was like, and I guess really the precursors for those letters.
Sure. Yeah. So there was three. One of them might bore you more than the other two, but so Chevron, Disney, and Apple. Okay. And we've had the most robust engagement with Chevron thereafter, but in each case, we're questioning on behalf of shareholders political and social positions that each of those companies had adopted, often in all three cases in response to different forms of pressure. So in Chevron's case, Chevron voluntarily adopted Scope 3 emissions and intensity targets in response to a shareholder proposal in 2021 that asked them to adopt emissions caps, not just for themselves, but also all the way up and down their supply chain. And this is a long story that could bore a lot of people, but I can tell if you're interested. But Scope 3 emissions are basically the equivalent of an oil company asking its customers to buy less oil. It's like McDonald's effectively voluntarily taking responsibility for reducing the body weight of any adult who's eaten a Big Mac. Might be good for the country, might be good for society. Hard to argue how that's good for the company. So that was the basic point that we made in that letter to Chevron. And the CEO responded. They flew out their CFO and other executives to have dinner, and we engaged in a debate and representing a view that had not been proactively represented in the shareholder ranks or in the boardroom of Chevron, because BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard, the biggest three guys, all voted in favor of this proposal in 2021. So similar to that, a few weeks later, based on the response we got, we said, okay, now we're going to focus on some other issues. So we wrote public letters as shareholders to the boards of Apple and Disney. In Apple's case, questioning a really similar kind of shareholder proposal that the SEIU and another nonprofit group called Color of Change had pressured Apple to adopt in the form of a racial equity audit, which was an audit that they demanded that Apple conduct. Apple's board initially said no, but BlackRock and State Street in this case voted in favor of it. And then that put enough pressure on Apple to now actively conduct its racial equity audit. Similarly, Disney, and Disney's example, I don't need to belabor with everyone else, but Disney's public advocacy on issues relating to transgender and gender identity education in Florida schools was a decision that did have palpable, adverse, negative business consequences for Disney. Agree or not with what Ron DeSantis did in Florida, if you're running the business, there was a predictable adverse response from the state that caused the company to lose valuable privileges there and also alienated, based on survey data, a lot of its customers. And so in each case, the question is, how does this best advance your company's mission and create value for the owners of the company? And if it doesn't, then we call on you as a shareholder to focus on your core products and services without regard to these commingled social agendas.
And so I'm very curious, because I'm familiar with Color of Change, maybe some of you are as well. Did Apple end up responding, or it was just?
I think in Apple and Disney's case, all we got was some sort of stock, standard stock response. And so recently, so Chevron, we've actually been much more engaged.
Well, it's a different type of company. And I think
Yeah.
media companies are always going to have just a different voice and a different philosophy. And so, that's why it's just such an intriguing space.
And we're evaluating whether we want to take this to the next level. So recently we identified 7 companies that of which we'd choose up to 3 to publicly engage with as part of next spring's proxy voting season. So that's when, the rubber hits the road in terms of actually possibly driving change through, the shareholder ballot box. And so, we're evaluating which 3 companies those will be. But the broader point is, look, I think that there's a legitimate debate to be had in a society about whether and how to fight climate change, whether and how to address historical racial injustice. I think these questions are so important, so fundamental, that they have to be settled through free speech and open debate in the public square, where everybody's voice and vote counts equally, not by some guy sitting with $10 trillion in Park Avenue using force to settle that question instead. And that's actually my main rub, is the method of settling the question rather than a rejection of the importance of the underlying substantive issues themselves. And the irony is, I think no one is served, not the proponents of said cause, nor the citizens in a democracy, nor the market participants in a capital market, when we settle it so monolithically using a small handful of market actors
I
settling
think
the answer.
it's really fascinating and obviously, very provocative. I wish we could talk about it so much more. I know you have to go to your book signing. Final question, just because we are living, in such times in this whole space, of course, affirmative action is now even being re-examined and so much more. How do you think, just as somebody who's always looking at the landscape because of, your asset management company and so much more, what do you think is going to be kind of the future of media, technology, and really just how that intersects with culture from a business point of view?
Yeah, so from a business point of view, so look, I think that there is a temptation right now in the Web3 arena, decentralization or whatever, to think that that's going to be the solution to some of the cultural challenges that we just spent 10 minutes talking about here. I'm actually very warm on Web3. I'm very warm on the rise of cryptocurrency, very sympathetic to the use of decentralization broadly as a way of advancing goals that could not be advanced through centralized systems. But I worry about the religiosity around it, which in some ways demands too much of Web3, demands too much of a cryptocurrency, demands too much of even a new vision of Twitter, to think that that's going to solve challenges that are fundamentally cultural in nature. And I don't think that, I think my advice from a business perspective would be, don't claim as your remit the goal of solving challenges that citizens need to grapple with in their culture through the use of technology. There is no technocratic solution to a fundamental cultural challenge. And I think in the same way that I think about the separation, you drew this separation from church and state analogy, one of the areas where I've been focused is the separation of capitalism and democracy. I think there's another area where I'm increasingly worried about the absence of a separation, the absence of a wall between the online and offline worlds. I think that the online world is at its best when we have a dividing line between the space in which we're in our offline world to be able to build the psychic fortitude, the sense of self-confidence, the self-identity that allows us to withstand algorithmic pressure on business models that are built on preying on our psychic insecurities when we enter the digital world, which is also why I'm quite culturally concerned about the rise of the metaverse, which is predicated on the idea of dissolving the boundary between the online world and the offline sanctuary. Just as, to draw the analogy to earlier, how I think of capitalism as a sanctuary from the otherwise inevitable spread of politics, I think about the real world that we're in as the inevitable sanctuary, as the critical sanctuary from the otherwise expansive force of the digital universe. So that'd be the parallel I draw between the two topics.
Of course. Thank you so much. I wish that we had time for questions, but again, Vivek has to go. I'm just so glad that I could have you, because I think as we move into the panel, it's going to be the exact, kind of flip around this. And so it's just so important to have all kinds of points of view brought into the space so that we can create in a more, I think, wholesome way, right? So
I appreciate that. We need more of that.
Cool.
So I appreciate that. I'll see if I can't catch it on the video or the replay after.
I appreciate
That's
it.
good.
Tell us the name of your new book really quickly before you run.
New book is Nation of Victims, Identity Politics, The Death of Merit, and the Path Back to Excellence.
There you have it. You guys, please join me in welcoming, or rather thanking, Vivek Ramaswamy.
Yeah.
All right, bye-bye. All right, so we're going to give Samsung just a couple minutes to bring up more seating for our panelists, and then we'll move into the panel. Thanks, Megan. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm going to welcome to the stage my 4 panelists. We're going to be talking about future media from various viewpoints, from their expertise. Please join me in welcoming everybody to the stage now, and I will introduce them once they're seated.
That means see is what you got for me. Put all your hands with my eyes to see. Straight buck wildin' in the place to be. If you really wanna party with me, that means see is what you got for me. Put all your hands with my eyes to see. Straight buck wildin' in the place to be. If you really wanna party with me, in God we trust.
Thank you, guys. I am so glad we could bring everybody out from the green room. So what I'm going to do is just run through each person's name and title, and then I will have each person kind of really explain a little bit more about what he or she does, and then we can jump into it. So to my immediate left, and I want to make sure I get the title proper, right, is Anand Radhakrishnan. Thank you so much. Who is managing director at the brand spanking new UTA.VC, but will also speak to his position at Invest Corp, and we're going to be getting into that. I think we're like one of the first to have you speak about UTA.VC, so I'm very honored. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And then to his left is Falan Patemi, who is the co-founder of Fireside, CEO and co-founder of Fireside, a very cool Web3 startup. She's going to tell us all about that. And then to her left, I have Ryan McTaggart, who's the Senior Vice President of Artist Development and Lifestyle Marketing at 300 Entertainment / Warner Music. And then last, but certainly not least, as they always say, is the wonderful Diana Richter, who is the CMO, Chief Marketing Officer of Consensus Mesh, who many of you probably know about Consensus. She will tell you about the mesh side of things. So let's jump into it. Again, thank you guys so much for coming, taking out the time on Thursday to be able to speak. I guess I want to kick it off with you maybe first, Anand, because you are heading up this new venture with UTA, of course, United Talent Agency. I'd love to know, first of all, how did that kind of come about, and set the stage a little bit for us, because I mean, obviously, this major kind of child wouldn't have been born unless you guys really felt very strongly about the space, right? So tell me a little bit about what you are looking to accomplish.
Sure. Thank you so much. And thanks everyone for coming out today. So UTA.VC is the new brand name for the joint venture between United Talent Agency, which is one of the largest talent agencies in the world, representing some of the most amazing talent out there. Anyone from a LeBron James to an Anderson Cooper to Chris Pratt. But we basically teamed up with Invest Corp, which is where I work and have been for the last 20 years, which is one of the largest alternative global asset managers. We have over 40 billion of alternative assets, and we have offices on 4 different continents. So we are very excited about this joint venture, and it came about because through our own private equity business at Invest Corp, we were actually owners in United Talent Agency up until very recently. And through that, really got to understand and appreciate the ecosystem that UTA is in, which is this sort of real cool intersection of media, entertainment, culture, and technology. And as part of that, got to know their venture capital arm, the UTA Ventures, which started as a way for a lot of celebrities and influencers to find ways to kind of develop their own businesses and develop their own business plans. But over time, because of where they sit in the economy and what they see, they had amazing access to just incredible venture capital deal flow. And so for us, and for me as a technology growth and capital and venture background, just saw this as very appealing. And I said, is there a way we can figure out how to develop a relationship where we could make this bigger and more institutional in terms of taking advantage of all the things that UTA has to offer, and got to know the team there very well. And that's how we came up with this sort of 50-50 joint venture.
So then now, did UTA Ventures go away? Is it absorbed into UTA.VC, or it's still its own?
No, it's UTA Ventures is still there.
Okay.
And so, some which is a pretty big department actually at UTA, but a number of people will be working directly on the fund, but as well as the fact that we can leverage just the sheer network of people, whether it's someone like a Leslie Silverman, who's the head of Web3, for example, at UTA. The focus of our joint venture is really to invest in the creator economy, Web3, and the future of entertainment. And while we were kind of conceiving these as distinct themes, I've learned now that these themes are really melding together. I mean, the creator economy really speaks to the fact that it's never been easier for anyone to start a business today. The idea that you can be an influencer, and that's a career.
And in fact, they survey 8 to 12-year-olds, and 30% of them want to be a YouTube star when they grow up. I have 3 boys, and they all want to be YouTube stars. By the way, that's 3 times as many people that want to be an astronaut. So
I was going to say, forget firemen. We're back in the day, right?
yeah. So,
Or-
I know a lot of people say this is the downfall of Western civilization right there, but honestly, I think it just speaks to the fact that people want to do what kind of excites them in life and follow their passions. And the pandemic, I think, in my view, really made this very clear, that people realized that, they might have had their day job and they had the side hustle. And a lot of people kind of said, you know what, maybe the side hustle should be what I really want to do. And honestly, we didn't have, even 10, 15 years ago, the platforms and the technologies to make that possible. And that's what I'm so exciting about what we're seeing now, that you got this confluence of certainly the younger generation, the Gen Zs, and even the Gen Alphas coming up, who see this as a way for them to, I don't want to work for the man. I don't want to work for a big company. I can go and do what I want to do. And the technology is catching up with that. To allow people to do that. And I think it's partially societal change, the pandemic doing it, a generational change, but the technology is a huge component to it. And it's something that we find exciting. And combining that with Web3 and sort of what the future of how we even define entertainment is a very, very exciting place to be.
So this is where you guys are focusing. I'm super into it. Thank you for clarifying. I want to jump over to Diana for a moment, because I feel like what she focuses on is kind of like the other side of that coin. So Diana, would you be able to tell us a little bit more about Mesh and what you do there and where you guys fit in this whole fab ecosystem?
Sure. Well, we actually are co-investors, and hopefully can have future co-investments. Yep. But for those who aren't familiar, Consensus Mesh is the investment arm of the former larger Consensus entity. So Joseph Lubin is one of the founders of Ethereum. And after being a part of that team with Vitalik and many others, created an organization called Consensus, and was investing in the very, very early days in advancing and championing the Ethereum ecosystem. And so with that came hundreds of investments, lots of incubated projects, a research and development team, among other verticals. In 2020, the company spun out our largest software companies products, which include MetaMask, Infura, and a few other kind of seminal brands within Ethereum and the Web3 space broadly. And Consensus, as it once was, rebranded to Mesh. So currently Mesh has the portfolio of invested companies, 190 positions in our portfolio, including Consensus Software, which is where we overlap. We also have an incubation arm. We have a research and development team. And then I said, investment, incubation, research and development, and then our portfolio management.
And it's
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're all over the world, 190 companies in Web3. You don't know where a founder is on any given day. You don't know where I am on any given day. I think that's really incredible. Consensus from day one was totally remote, which was really allowed for people from all over the world to, participate, as was the original thesis and idea, and continues to be a core tenet of Web3 broadly. So that's what Mesh is working on right now. Mesh is very focused on investing in DAOs because we are not a traditional fund like a UTA.VC or other big funds in the space. We can be not that you can't be, but we can be extremely experimental and innovative, which is really freeing and exciting for the work we all do. And as a result, we're really excited about DAOs as the place that we want to play in. And for those who aren't familiar, DAO stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization. So it is meant to be a new form of governance of communities, of organizations, still a very nascent and evolving part of Web3 broadly, but one that we are investing in heavily.
Thanks so much, Diana. And I think that's a great segue over to Fallon, because you know, the two of you are kind of like the overlords, if you will, of Web3, but Fallon is like, really out here doing it. And I know that it can't be easy. She is, and I'm sure everybody, at least the guys in the room, everybody knows who Mark Cuban is, owner of Mavericks, et cetera, et cetera. This is just happens to be like her partner in this project. And so I would love for you to tell us about Fireside, Fallon, but we're going to go to video first so you guys can actually see what the premise is and the proposition. And then we'll jump back to Fallon to kind of fill in the details for us, okay? So let's go to the video right now, please, on Fireside.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jay Leno. This is Fireside.
YNS Live with NFL Thread, live on Fireside.
All right. Welcome to Victory Before the podcast on the Fireside app.
See how creators are able to connect to their audiences. This is a participatory entertainment platform.
We're excited to be on a platform where we can actually talk to people who are watching.
So I like it, but my husband wants to change it.
Fireside, co-founded by investor Mark Cuban, aims to put control back into the hands of creators.
You do, in fact, own your IP and you get live analytics.
Are you guys ready to get on your soapbox?
No one's allowed to have fun. That's for sure.
By having that interactivity, the whole dynamic of creating content changes.
Ross, what are the Timberwolves doing tonight?
Short-term upside. How did you learn to be leader with that?
And I made some mistakes.
Talk about all this exciting stuff that we have going on for Super Bowl and then whatever else you want to ask me.
Another reason I love doing boards is that everyone always naturally gravitates towards the kitchen.
There was no way I was going to let the fans down.
We're going to use Fireside to kind of build our community.
Tell us your memorable character you want to share with us tonight.
Hilariously, Elaine from Seinfeld.
Right now, this show could be simulcasted to YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitch, Twitter.
From one app.
When you end up doing what you love doing, sometimes you find yourself in a situation you could never imagine.
I'm working towards audio sculpture that is a pure vision.
We haven't seen the best yet.
I'm excited and just ready for what's next.
Thank you. All right, so I read about this in maybe The Verge or TechCrunch, I can't remember, several months ago, and I was like, this seems like pretty hot. The kind of collaboration with Entourage jumped out at me and so much more. So I guess, first of all, could you maybe distill what's going on in the video for our audience and tell us how it came about? Because Fallon is also no joke, you guys. She was at one point the youngest employee at Google and YouTube, correct? So she's not like, it's not playtime. She knows what she's doing. So tell us a little bit about, were you just sitting around after Google and was like, you know what, I'm having a fabulous idea.
I sold my last company, which was an AI company, didn't take a vacation and got a term sheet after 5 conversations and just went straight into this. So, yeah. And then brought the deal to Mark and he was like, make me a co-founder. I'm like, absolutely. Cause he, with broadcast.com, which is the company who made him a billionaire, that company put streaming on the internet. And so really what we're doing is sort of taking all of that to the next level. So Fireside is the first interactive Web3 streaming platform. It is the only platform that turns talent, brands, and organizations into the studio network and streaming services of the future. What does that future look like? You saw a little glimpse of it. It's where audiences aren't just consuming content, they're actually invited to participate and be part of the show. It's where it's Web3 enabled, but as a part of its infrastructure. So it's totally consumerized and lends itself to an ownership model where the talent, the brands and organizations that are building their businesses on Fireside own their audience relationship, audience data and IP directly, and allows them to launch these next generation entertainment networks with a membership model that gives their super fans a level of access that today they could only dream of. So for example, imagine being in the writer's room of your biggest idols, or having input on programming, or being behind the scenes of the production process and having the opportunity to get casted. We have over 2 billion in reach of individual, really industry first networks that are launching major D2C businesses, household names, with major brands and broadcasters wanting us to power their next gen streaming. And then we just closed an acquisition of a company that we have not announced yet, so please don't talk to The Verge or TechCrunch, that gives us a CTV app preloaded in all smart TVs. And so coming soon to you is true interactive streaming, where instead of just watching a cooking show, you can now cook along with your favorite chef in real time, watch it on your TV from the palm of your hand, be interacting, laughing, clapping, ask for substitutes for ingredients, turn your camera around, show that end product, and literally be part of the show.
So tell us though a little bit about how that is indicative of Web3, because aren't there NFT kind of elements to this as well? At least that's what I read 4 or 5 months ago.
It's part of the infrastructure, so it's totally consumerized. So let's talk a little bit about that. So why do we use Web3? First of all, for us, it is the vehicle to deliver on our promise of ownership. We go away as a platform tomorrow. The talent, brands, and organizations that are building their multi-million and billion-dollar businesses on Fireside own their audience relationship directly through blockchain. Number two, what we are doing is unlocking entire new business models where actually the super fans finance the networks, what we call these Fireside networks, from day one, because phase one of launching a Fireside network is actually launching a fan club and giving those super fans a level of access and ownership that's highly exclusive, that's similar to a PSL model where you own a seat in the stadium, you can rent it, you can sell it, you're paying your annual season, subscription. And then them leveraging those proceeds to then finance their business. So whether it's to finance production or programming or marketing, however they want to leverage it. One thing that we've patented is what we call token gated streaming. So it's where we enable individual pieces of content to be gated based on levels of participation or access in relationship to the flavor of the virtual wristband I may have as a user. And then number 4, we're parameterizing the smart contracts. So we're making it really easy for networks to turn their fandoms into their biggest ambassadors, where they can actually allow them to participate in the upside or revenue they may bring in that's similar to an affiliate model.
So, but Fallon, tell me what challenges you might have in terms of like converting Hollywood to such a scenario, because of looking at it and listening to it, it's just like, this is amazing, right? But a lot of times, and I know this coming from the music industry, and Ryan, I am going to get to you in a minute, you can have the best idea like in the world, but if you are used to making money in a traditional way, it's very hard sometimes to get people to change, right? Even though they know it's the future, it's very challenging. So what have you kind of done, or what have you encountered that you kind of overcome as you're trying to evangelize about Fireside?
So we're highly selective about who we work with. And we are, so for example, in order to have a network on Fireside, you need to have a track record of having transacted a minimum of 10,000 fans, customers to pay a couple $100s for something consistently. Which implies you have a D2C business or a rabid fandom. And in a world where everyone needs to be a media company anyways, we work actually with a lot of those. And we were talking earlier in the green room. I mean, you look at someone like a Kelly Clarkson or something, they are bigger in terms of their reach than the majority of D2C businesses out there, let alone the actual networks and media companies that they may be contributing to, and that frankly are profiting more from them. And in a lot of ways, I think the future is them becoming their own, which is what we're enabling. So whenever you're innovating on something new, you're totally right. There's a lot of, you're getting pushback from the traditional structures and the ways that people are used to getting compensated, or, like, which a lot of it is minimum upfront guarantees and things like that. That's not our model, which is why we work with people who really understand the value of not just pioneering an industry first, but really bringing their community into one hub, their fandom into one hub that today is spread across multiple platforms, especially on social, which they do not own. They're renting their audiences on that platform. And being able to unlock entire new ways of deepening that relationship and bringing their fans closer together to them than ever before, that ultimately is going to lead to more commerce and success in relationship with their audience, directly collaborating with them on it.
So Ryan, let me jump over to you. I feel that this is like, kind of a good segue, because Fallon is on one side of the talent and business model equation in this new world. And you are working with and, representing so many different recording artists who we all love. So I guess first question is, did you teach Megan Thee Stallion to twerk, or did she teach you, or is it proprietary? Like, we just want to know.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
And I got to follow Fallon. That's like twice today. One, she taught me this work and
Okay, just
to drive the
checking.
boat. So this is
Okay,
all
so it's
Megan.
even. But as you probably, Ryan is working with a ton of amazing artists. And I think, it's not too little to say that really driving a lot of the ways that they are interacting with innovation and all other emerging technology companies, correct? So what's that kind of like for you on a day-to-day, as we all, already just said, with Fallon kind of trying to convert people and evangelize, but hip hop is usually out front, right? In terms of emerging technology, depending on what it is, whatever, how are you seeing it day to day from your end over at 300 Entertainment?
I think to Fallon's point, it's very direct to consumer, like it's fans touching the artists touching the fans. Like at the end of the day, record labels, if you're a good partner to your artist, you're helping them tell their story, right? Whether it's Megan's story, it's gonna Future, like Lil Baby, pick a label, pick an artist. Like they're all telling their stories. If you think of your favorite artist, think of the stories they tell, whether it's personal, where they talk about their life, where they're from, all that good stuff. But I think hip hop has always been the forefront of technology because these kids grew up on it's the newest music, right? Like you're coming on the 50-year anniversary, which sounds like a long time, but really in the grand scheme of things, it's still the newest music on planet Earth, right? So a lot of that is just getting in front of it and getting artists. Like we have artists on name of T Grizzly, like the first artist to do a whole album release on his GTA server, like, which is crazy. Had like 30,000 concurrent viewers for 4 hours, like, which in the Twitch world is insane. Which when I came in, hadn't until the pandemic, none of us knew anything about Twitch, Web3, nothing. Blockchains, this was all like, we had a crash course in a month. We're like, we're not going outside for a very long time. We have to figure this out. Gunna, another perfect example, album coming a month into the pandemic, what do we do? He's like, I had a friend that worked at Gary Vee. He's like, what about a gaming tournament? I'm like, does anybody really watch that though? And he was like, watch this. We got all the NBA players, all the real streamers, all the gamers kind of helped us put it together because we didn't really know what we were doing at first and kind of figured it out. And like, oh my God, like this became a thing on the internet. Like, because we're always looking for that push, right? We're always like, how do we get people's attention? And in the pandemic, we're all at home. So it was kind of like figuring out that space. And now that we're coming back outside, I think all labels are trying to figure out like, what is the version of coming outside, but bring all that technology that we've been using for the last 2 years, because Lord knows we all hate Zoom, but we're all on Zoom. So how do we use that in a world where we're outside and bringing that inside out? Like I have a lot of artists that are like, how do we bring the gaming on the road? How do we interact? Like to your point, like we're in the studio, like how do we get these fans to watch us make our records, but still monetize it? Because at the end of the day, like I get paid for my job. Everyone out here gets paid for their job. Like no one's working for free. So we have to figure out a way that still doesn't, what's the word I'm looking for? Like really make the artists and consumer feel like they're together, right? Where one doesn't feel like they're taking advantage of the other. Because artists, they think about that. They think about their fans heavily.
Oh yeah, because the fans will let you know if they feel that way.
Trust me, piss them off on Twitter for 10 seconds. You'll find out the hard way. But a lot of that is just figuring out the ins and the outs and figuring out how do we get the next, almost like how do we be there 5 years from now? Like that's always our I think, what's the next thing? What are we trying to do? And we're going to fail sometimes. And that's great because we're going to learn the right way to do things, but we still have to figure out the technology part when also we're a little confined because we're all part of bigger companies. And what's the way that every artist can win?
Well, this is interesting that you say this because my next question was really going to ask how, and maybe this could be maybe between you and Diana to the extent that maybe you talk in depth with a lot of your companies that you're incubating, but the artists and creatives need, of course, those who are founders in the tech space and vice versa. How do you guys kind of bridge that gap so that it is organic, so that it is easily communicated? Because obviously there are two different mindsets, right? And so have you had a lot of times, I don't know, emerging technology companies approach you, Ryan, and then you're just like, I don't know how to vet them or if they should be vetted or whatever. I mean, how does it kind of work? Similarly, Diana, with maybe companies that you guys are incubating, it could hit like in a major way with like the right recording artist, but the relationship isn't there. They're two different camps, right? But they both kind of can benefit from each other. So I'm just wondering if you've either had any direct experiences with that or have any just general thoughts about it.
Well, I'll say, I think that's where the value of UTA.VC comes in, which is why it's great that we have a relationship, and I'll let you speak to the value add that you guys offer. But on the mesh end, hot take, like it's really early, and I know it's exhausting to keep hearing that time and time and time again, and I'm tired of hearing it. But a lot of the companies that we're invested in or we're incubating are infrastructure based. So they're just trying to make blockchain, a public blockchain, work seamlessly, work for the consumer, make their lives better. And the consumer layer that you're speaking to, like we haven't even gotten that far yet, because it's just not working on the infrastructure layer. So we're still super early. That said, I think what's interesting about this space versus, you know, when the original tech bubble and the internet formed is that there is just so much attention on it because there are all of these tools for people to talk about it and think that they know or think that they don't know or think that they should know. And so as a result, I think there is much more of a consumer focus right off the bat running in parallel than there was in, you know, the 2000s and the late 90s.
Yeah, what's amazing, I mean, so I started my career in like 1996, so right at the very beginning of this, and you know, I took a trip down memory lane looking at some old reports from 1995, and if you actually read the internet reports pulled, like Mary Meeker's internet report from 1995, it's all about infrastructure. You know, they were just, I mean, you should see a picture of what Amazon.com's tried to be world's biggest bookstore website looked like in 1996. It's kind of a joke if you actually look at the site. But, you know, she was saying, forget that, focus on, you know, Cisco, you know, company that's a company that's still around, but a whole bunch of companies that aren't around on the infrastructure. And one of the things that the internet had going for it versus Web3 is the internet, there were actually a bunch of standards that already existed by the time the internet came out, because, you know, it was really invented by the government in the late 60s, early 70s. Right. So, you know, a whole bunch of time happened that allowed standardization to happen. I mean, the first blockchain, Bitcoin, was what, 2009? Ethereum is what, 2014, 15? Right? We're not even 10 years now. I mean, so we're still trying to figure out these standards, but at the same time, we're also trying to figure out the applications and all the stuff that goes on top of it. And for me, even though I'm a technologist and a technologist by training, if there's not a business reason to do something, the technology doesn't matter. And it's funny, you had mentioned, you know, you didn't talk about Web3 because why should Web3 matter? At the end of the day,
exactly,
you're trying to solve a problem. And
the value.
Yeah. So you shouldn't have to know how blockchain works. You don't probably know how the internet works. You don't have to know how blockchain works, but we need to make it seamless. And part of what we're doing is trying to marry that, finding the technologies with the actual business case and working with UTA talent and influencers and creatives and people saying, this is what I need to kind of move myself forward. And that's what helps inform what we invest in. Because ultimately we're trying to build businesses and solve business problems that actually everyone can, you know, relate to.
How many people in the audience, raise your hand, have actually purchased an NFT? Wow. Okay. We got quite a web. I guess the title of this kind of attracted you guys. What was that experience like for your first time? Was it a pleasant experience?
Painful, I'm sure, right?
It was a good one.
Well, how many people were using a native token like ETH versus just a credit card?
Yeah.
You're using ETH or vice versa?
Are you going to ask if they have a MetaMask wallet? Because
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me ask, I think, both Diana and Anna, and then the question, though, like kind of inverse to both Ryan and Patemi. But what do you guys look for as you decide either what you're going to invest in or what you're going to kind of take under your wing, right? Because everybody is running around now with some version of some idea. You can't be sure what's going to be hot or not. And besides just like the standard, the team, right? What are you really kind of looking at if somebody, you know, in the audience is thinking about that, right?
Yeah, I mean,
I know too, just to like kind of as a premise, you're focusing on Series C and D from what I understand.
No, we actually have the ability to invest across the cap table. So we can do Series A, we can do seed, we can do, and actually it's great in this market right now where I think there's a bit of concern over late stage venture in general.
Yeah.
You know, until I think the public markets come back to something where people can get comfortable, it's going to be a lot, I call it a locked market where just, if you don't have to raise money right now, you're not. And so there aren't a lot of transactions happening. But because we're thematic investors and focused on the 3 themes I talked about, creator economy, Web3, and future of entertainment, we've pivoted and spent a lot more time recently looking at some of the earlier stage deals. But ultimately, what we're looking for is probably no different than most investors. You want to invest in something that we think is obviously going after a big market and solving a real need or business problem. There has to be a reason why this company should exist and a reason for what they're doing is sustainable and in that market. And so for us, even at the early side, you can identify, is there a real big market and are they solving a real problem? The funny thing about technology investing is there's so many technologies out there that are almost like I'm in search of a problem I'm trying to solve, right? And at the end of the day, as a business person, you're going to pay money because there's a pain point. There's something that you're like, you know what? I'd be willing to pay money to make that experience a lot easier in buying an NFT than the process I've had to go through. And so that's what you have to think about in terms of what you're looking at. And of course, the team matters, what they've done matters, the market, the pedigree, how they're going to go about it, the business model. But to be honest, with most of the early stage companies, these things change over time. So what's most important and why people talk about the team and why that's so important is you want to make sure that person knows the market's going to evolve, especially markets growing 100% or more a year. They're going to evolve. Can I evolve with it? Can I make quick decisions? Can I pivot? If I see something's not working, how quickly can I switch to something that is? Those are really the markers of what I think someone who can build a successful company are from our standpoint.
Thanks, Hannah. Diana, anything to add to that?
I mean, I am not an investor by trade, though I like to pretend I am. But at Mesh, again, like I said, kind of at the outset, we're thinking differently in that all of those core, tenants apply, except we're looking at DAOs very specifically. And we believe that DAOs are something that or blockchain has enabled DAOs to exist in the way that kind of coordination just could not exist previously. And, we hope, and we, of course we care about our return on investment and, we all want to make a lot of money here, but we're also, our founder is the co-founder of Ethereum and he has these incredible goals and this incredible vision. And that's our guiding light. And I think a product of that is that we are able to see past kind of, our LPs and our investors want to see a 10x return in 3 years or whatever it might be. But actually, we want to see Ethereum stand up as the #1, public blockchain. Though we all acknowledge that we live in a multi-chain world and we can get into technicalities and details there, but yeah.
Thanks so much. Fallon, let me ask you to just kind of maybe pull back from, just not Fireside, but the industry in general. What do you think is missing right now? Whether it's, really on the technical end or just in any kind of other aspect as to what could make Web3 either move either faster, have a smoother type of adoption, whatever. What do you think you could wave your magic wand? What would you love to see? What would make your life at Fireside, easier?
Well, I mean, I'm very biased because we're doing what we believe is the future. So, I mean, from our perspective, you should never need to even know that you're leveraging Web3 technology. That is irrelevant to the actual value that you get from it. We are a company whose infrastructure is leveraging Web3, NFT-powered membership subscriptions, all of that. It's never marketed to a consumer as a Web3 platform. It is interactive streaming. And it's a platform that's enabling these organizations and brands and D2C businesses to offer a very special level of membership or access or subscription. So at the end of the day, I think it's all about improving that user experience, leveling it up to what my mom can understand, and making it so seamless and easy. There's no Web 2, Web 3. No, it's I'm putting in a credit card. I'm buying something like I would buy anything else. And I'm now able to unlock this level of access and value that I'm now getting that is very easily understood and not focused on a digital JPEG or whatever, which all those companies are evolving to, media companies anyway. So I think leveling up from the infrastructure layer, which is an important layer to continue to invest in to improve I think the overall higher level user experience. I'd love to see more innovation happening there and thinking at that level. I mean, you never have to even know that you have a wallet through Fireside. We're auto creating it for you underneath the hood. We're putting the NFT in it. That's your virtual wristband. It's not even like a concept that you need to worry about. Like, why does that matter? It shouldn't, at least for our use case. So, I'd love to see more innovation happening at that level. There are some, there's one of my advisors is the founder of I guess now he calls it Homecoin, but LoanSnap was originally called. They're using the blockchain to do mortgage loans. I mean, that's incredibly innovative, right? Something that takes an insane amount of paperwork that now can be done in a digital way. And then you can unlocks all these possibilities where you can now borrow against it, loan against all these other turns into now a whole digital asset that can unlock other value from you from a financial perspective. I think that's incredibly interesting. I'd love to see more use cases like that. And then I guess on the other side of it, it's continuing to invest in the innovation at the lower levels, because we're having to do a lot of work on our side to auto create the wallet. I mean, the tech's not really fully there yet. We have partnered with a blockchain partner that's given us the best user experience that we can provide to our users today, but we build everything in a platform agnostic way. If we find something better, we're swapping it out. And it's all about what's in the best interest of the people who are building business on our platform and of our consumers.
Sorry, I was exactly going to ask you if you don't mind, because I'm curious how, as you've been building this, how you find, there's no easy solution here that's actually using Web3 native tools or is natively blockchain. And then as a result, you have to build it. What percentage of your progress thus far has been you've built in-house or you've been able to plug in?
A lot of it's been built in-house. But it's with the third parties that we're plugging into, we're also understanding that this is a very nascent industry and that, again, we need to set ourselves up so we're not in a corner around anything that we build. It's built in a very modular way because we're platform agnostic. You want to create content, you want to distribute it to social, you can do that through Fireside. Same thing from a technology perspective. It's we should be able to support it all.
Which is why I keep thinking as we're talking interoperability. Yeah, exactly. For anyone here, but that's jargon. That's nonsense. No one should have to worry about interoperability. I should never have to say that word again.
That in the AI world, platform as a service. It's just you can plug into other applications. It just works. Anyway.
So Ryan, I think that you work with a lot of those who are not definitely interested in anything that is, under the hood and so much more. But I know that you said, just a few minutes before about kind of trying to tackle the challenge of how do we bring the gaming into, the real world, et cetera. How are you kind of looking at that? How are you kind of thinking about being able to solve some of those problems, create new partnerships around them and more?
I think for us, it's just finding the right partner. I think just from a music business standpoint, we haven't found the partner that, again, we don't understand. We know how to drive the car. We have no idea how this works under the hood. So we need someone to come in that can speak our language and help us tell our stories to get it to the fans. Because at the end of the day, we're trying to get to the consumers, but we want to do it. We want to be part of this. We know it's important, but there still hasn't been the person that came along. We're talking back there, Steve Jobs came along one day and was like, I can sell you music on the internet. We're like, great. We don't know how to do it, but this sounds awesome. So we need the person that can come in. Here's how blockchains work in Web3. And this is how you can get your content from your artists to your fans in an easier way for the fan experience to be good. Because at the end of the day, that's all that matters. To everyone's point up here, no one cares how it works under the hood. They just want to be able to get it. So that's, I think, the important thing is just finding the right partner.
So we're going to actually move to questions in a little bit, but I would be remiss if I didn't ask what you guys are thinking about in terms of inclusion. How are you thinking about making sure that the space is 360 for all types of people, all genders, et cetera? Does it even, come up? Fallon's thinking about it from, an audience point of view. I know, Ryan, obviously you're working with primarily, artists of color, but still you're talking to, hopefully, a market that is of all types of people, et cetera. And then you guys, of course, looking to those next founders. How do you kind of balance that out with kind of speaking back to Vivek almost, still making sure that it's, a business, right? And that it's not all about, just really one side or the other, right? Doing good, but not really, and all the theater around that. It's not easy, right? Because back in the day, this was not a concern. We have not perfected this yet. We're all moving through it, just like we're creating, Web3. So, and I know when you and I spoke a little bit offline, you said that this was, something that you really kind of focus on or think about. So I'll start, with you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I'm lucky in the sense that the firm I work for, InvestCorp, has always been a diverse firm. We've always had lots of different nationalities and different people from different backgrounds. We've been global, and so we were joking. We were kind of doing DE&I before it was even a thing, because that's just the way our DNA was wired. And by the way, UTA very much the same. And culturally, both of our firms are very, very committed to.
How do you think, though, it still maintains that 2% or less for everybody who is not Caucasian male for investing over, like, what, at least since I've only been looking at it for the last 2 decades.
It's actually less than 2% now.
So how do you think that happens?
Well, like I said, unless you're actively, I think the fact that I'm working with 2 firms that are very privileged in the sense that we've actually been thinking about this, I can't speak for the entire industry. And certainly coming from the asset management industry and the private equity industry, and I joke because I worked in middle market private equity as well. If you take the websites of most middle market private equity firms, it's like white male after white male after white male, and it's just that this is systematic, and I think we all know that. So part of it is, first of all, you have to admit that it's systematic and know that before you can actually start solving that. And then once you make that admission, what can you do to actually change that? And like I said, a privilege from the fact that I'm working for a firm that's always thought about diversity. UTA also has been that way. But if you go back to this concept of things being talent driven and creator driven, ultimately, the tools, like I said, the fact that anyone can start a business now because the tools are out there. And it doesn't even have to be Web3, just, the fact that you can start an e-commerce business now, with not a lot of startup capital, and can do everything online, literally from your basement, wherever it is something pretty powerful and pretty cool, and really didn't exist 15, 20 years ago, just was not something that's possible, which means that, as long as, we have a certain level of literacy in terms of using, the internet and computers to be able to do that, telling people that there is a way, and encouraging more people in more diverse backgrounds to say, follow your passion, follow what it is that you care about, and how can I create a business that actually capitalizes on my passion? That to me is the creator economy in a nutshell, and in a way is a way to enable a lot of people to do things that they just simply may not have been able to do in the past.
And I guess probably pretty much to networks, right? Most of it is relationship. I mean, Fallon, with you having, such an illustrious background, did you find it challenging to be able to raise? I mean, you already had success with the company that you just recently sold.
Any serial entrepreneur, yeah, if you've had success in landing the plane, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a lot easier because you already have those relations. I mean, my last company was an AI company. I mean, I full-time fundraised for 3 years for that business because it was so just like capital intensive. And I would say that was it. And that was back in the, that was in my late 20s. Also when there weren't a lot of female founders, especially in such a tech, heavy industry of AI. Right. So yeah, of course it was, and I was in a couple of these New York Times articles talking about that as well, some of the challenges around that. But, I think at the end of the day, it's not where as a founder you want to focus your energy or your time. It's all about focusing on what is the problem that you are super passionate about solving, that you feel you are the right person to solve, and focusing every energy and time that you have into making that as successful as possible, and just surrounding yourself with an incredible infrastructure of mentors and supporters and other founders. A lot of male founders as well early on introduced me to a lot of my first investors as well. The reality is, as a woman in tech, it is totally not a fair playing field, period, end of story. That just is what it is. And it's all about focusing on surrounding yourself with those people and those networks that ultimately are going to support you because of your accomplishments and because of your passion and your drive. And those people are out there. Just don't it's all about you really though, believing that you can do that. I mean, I'm proof that that's possible. So
Ben, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say, I think the difference with Web3 is that we're talking about this from the outset, right? So the amount of groups that are focused on supporting different communities are they're numerous, like for people who are interested, and for women, there's Boys Club, there's She-Fi. There are probably a million.
My BFF. They've done a great job.
My BFF. There are groups for every different kind of woman who's interested. There's Web3 Familia for Latins. There are other groups for African Americans and for LGBTQ plus and so on and so forth. And they are all collaborative and connected and present. And I think that that's very different from, 20 years ago and 30 years ago. Yeah. Oh, and I think a lot of them, what's also great is that they're focused not just on education, once you're 18, but going back to like 5, 6, 7 years old. You can't like fit a square peg in a round hole, but you have to talk about it so that then we can, solve the systemic issues going way back. So.
Anand, I feel like you want to add something, no?
No, I agree 100%. I mean, and like I said, that part of it's the same kind of theme that, we are in a different world today, and the technology has enabled, the fact that these social networks, it doesn't matter where you are, you can be sitting here advising someone, 10 time zones away. And that power, once again, due to the internet, due to the fact that we are connected in a way that we just simply weren't connected in the past, is a real struggle.
Actually, that's a really big deal. I think what COVID accelerated was, before COVID, the idea that like a Silicon Valley venture firm was going to invest in a global company was never going to happen. It's like you had to be in SF or New York, or, some of these different locations where they had offices. Now, who used to, people who used to live in San Francisco are now everywhere, right? They might be, so I think what that does is it's now leveling the playing field actually in all markets as well, because now we have the best of whatever capital is out there globally. So it really is about finding your people and just believing in yourself to not stop until you make it happen, and never taking no for an answer. That's something I'm really good at.
And working in Web3, there's an expectation of pay equality. If you're hiring someone who's based in Mexico City, you're going to pay them what you would pay someone who lives in New York City. And that trend is increasing, and that's pretty powerful.
So guys, I think what we want to do is go to the audience for questions for a few moments. Then we'll move to closing remarks and kind of wrap things up. So do we have our wonderful people from Samsung around with microphones, or do we want to yell out? We're ready? Okay. So anybody have any questions? Anybody brave enough to put a hand up? I know you have questions. Okay, go for it.
Things you're excited about, either on the investing side or specific examples would be great to hear about for companies that you've invested in recently that you're really excited about. And a fireside example would be great too, of a creator that's doing an amazing job. And then maybe some new fan engagement mechanisms as well.
Who wants to go first?
Okay. So I'll just give an example of someone who's launching a network. So Adam Waheed is a comedy star. His content gets 1.4 billion views per month. If you're on social platforms, you have seen his comedy skits. He is launching on Fireside a network. Think about it as like a next generation Comedy Central, where one of the benefits is that the members of his network will get to be in his writer's room, helping him come up with the ideas for his short comedy films. He's then programming that network with other people in his world, whether it's up and coming comedians, TikTok stars, really building this out as a platform that extends beyond him having to play this hamster wheel of social, and really move to the next phase of his career, which is building out his production company, producing and becoming his own network and streaming service, and really becoming and taking control of his business, because he is an entrepreneur at the end of the day. And I think for, whether it's digital influencers or people who are kind of all of a sudden have risen to a level of reach and fandom, I think one thing that has been very fascinating to me coming from Silicon Valley is they don't realize that they're entrepreneurs. And that's something that we're really excited to be able to introduce, and then give them the tools and the guidance and the support to be able to now become really the future face of media and entertainment.
As I go. So I think for us from a music business standpoint, short form content is kind of where like we're here, but I think this is going to take off in the next 2 or 3 years. Definitely you got to look at how songs are created these days. They're no longer 5-minute songs. They're really like 2:30. That kind of fits the format of a video, the way YouTube is going all in on shorts, the reels on Instagram, I think. And what I would tell all you guys is if you can find those content creators that are good at short form content, that's all we're looking for these days. We need a person that can make that 2-minute video look amazing, that it can travel. Because at the end of the day, that's all we want. Everything people do on the internet is for it to travel, right? That's the goal, right? But we don't really have a lot of those content creators yet. I think that's this generation. They're going to come around and master this. And then they're going to be the next ones. And then hopefully songs will go back to 5 years, 5 minutes, 5 days. Then it'll go to 5 seconds. Like technology changes so fast. It's always going to be that one artist that catches it before everyone else, and it changes the game. And it happens about every 5 years or so. So I think 2025, 26, you're going to start to see that new wave coming. I think that's what we're all preparing for, but we still haven't found that artist, or we haven't really found those content providers or content creators. So I think that's where it's kind of going for us.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, two areas within the creator economy and Web3 we're very excited about. One of the companies we recently invested in is a company called Bounty, which really is focused on this idea that anyone can be an influencer, anyone can kind of create content and put it out there. And in this case, one of the things they're looking for is sort of user-generated content once you've bought a product. So maybe in the old days, you buy a product, you put a Yelp review or something on there. Instead, here you buy the product, you make a 30-second TikTok and you post it with a specific smart code in there, and you get paid for it. The brand already sets kind of a cost per, on that. And suddenly you've gone from never being an influencer to suddenly getting paid. And it's, to me,
I just was reading about this yesterday about how some guy, not, in a formal way with Bounty, but it was just like, let me just do this Tide commercial. And then Tide paid him mad money.
Well,
and
that's,
he has all these
and that's the thing.
Detergent wipes?
Yeah, well, exactly. But my point is anyone can do this now. And the fact is, if you do a good job of it, and you're on the platform, for example, the brand can see it and decide, you know what, I will license that content. By the way, it's a lot cheaper to do that than to go find an influencer already and license from them. And this is a way that you can make money, and it's a win-win for everyone. It just enables a new market that didn't exist. And I think that's pretty cool. On the Web3 side, we're investors in a company called Perks, P-E-R-C-S. And they focus on NFT-based loyalty programs. So if you think about frequent flyer miles as the ultimate fungible kind of token in the old world, in the future, you could have an NFT. And I don't know, maybe you're Nike and you get an NFT that says, you're a really loyal customer, and that NFT unlocks the ability to go to an event, maybe a new sneaker being unveiled, maybe a specific discount, and it's tied to that NFT. Oh, and maybe you have the right to sell that NFT on a market, on a secondary market. Once you've gone to the event once, you could sell it to someone else to potentially go to the event. And by the way, Nike can take a cut of that because you can track that digital token on the blockchain. So, this is going to be a huge space. I think we see that already. It's still early, but super cool already seeing what people are trying to do with this.
Our most recent investment is media related, so it's a good time to talk about it. We just invested in something called, or a group called CocoDAO. I don't know how many people are familiar with what CCO is. I always forget what it actually stands for.
Chief Creative Officer?
No. Creative Commons. It basically means that you have an open license to do whatever you want with the IP. So there's a very famous, and sometimes I need to realize I'm so deep in the Web3 bubble. I don't know how many people have heard of Nouns. People familiar with the glasses? Okay, a few, not many. It was in a Super Bowl commercial for Budweiser. But anyway, Nouns is an NFT project. They release a new NFT every day. It's going for a lot of money, so it's deeply inaccessible. But the idea is that anyone who owns that NFT, or you don't have to own an NFT, anyone can do whatever they want with the NFT. Like there are no rules. And as a result, they hope, or the idea is that the entire value of the IP will grow, because the more people who want to work with that concept, the better. Though, there's a lot of nuance there, and there's some interesting podcasts that talk about it. But CocoDAO is specifically purchasing Creative Commons NFT projects. So they're buying Nouns, they're buying, I I think there's like a Toads project. I don't know what the other ones are, but the idea is that they think that CCO projects are all going to grow in value because they have these communities that are able to build around them, and you don't have to have 50 ETH in your wallet to play with a noun. So, but that's a whole other, that's like another conversation, by the way, because CCO is complicated, and I'm sure, yeah.
Anybody else? Any other questions? Right here, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Hi, my question is for Diana. My name is Sultan. And the question is that what are some of the strategies that a CMO of a company that's directly tied to Web 3.0 is doing to revive some optimism? And I can follow up and set the stage really briefly, right? I don't know if you caught any of Vivek's bit, who was here right before you. And he said that he's optimistic of the potential that NFTs, Web 3.0 and crypto has, but like reading in between the lines, not the best time right now, right? I work on Verizon's, I support the Verizon CMO team, and the word on the street is Verizon has some financial troubles right now. Consensus Mesh was found by Ethereum co-founder. Ethereum has some financial troubles right now. I'm a little more optimistic than Vivek, so I'm holding on to it, my investments, or as some would say, hodling.
Same.
For life. But still curious, like as a CMO, what are some of the strategies that you're deploying and Consensus is deploying to revive some optimism? Because not the best time on at least for the word on the street.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really interesting question, and one that I've never been asked, fortunately, because I'm not on the consumer side of things. Even though I used to work on the consumer side, like I get to help our portfolio figure out tactics and strategies. And so I think that's more of a challenge for our portfolio companies that are looking to drive adoption. And how do they, and I'd say, you know, it's like, how do they better communicate that blockchain doesn't necessarily matter? They don't need to say DAO, NFT, all of these kinds of buzzwords. But again, I think everyone and the people I'm working with are so focused on making the tech better that optimism or, you know, fluctuations in the market, frankly, like we always say, it's totally irrelevant for us because it kind of segments like the real believers and the builders versus the opportunists and the people who are just trying to make a quick buck. Yeah, we're in a bear market, sure. You go to, I was just in Bogota for DevCon, which is a developer conference for Ethereum developers, and there was no conversation around price action whatsoever. There was conversation around the deepest, darkest, like next steps of where the tech is going to go. And I think it actually would be like, how do you channel those conversations to get the non-technical people to understand that like like people are just trying to solve problems, and it's really exciting. And I think it's like, how do you get out of the noise? I don't have an answer beyond that.
What I'll share is we actually hear that a lot because we work with brands, we work with artists, we work with you know, major media companies as well. And it all depends on the sophistication of the audience, and we're an ecosystem play, right? So we offer all these bells and whistles. They're building their business on top of the infrastructure of the future. They can leverage as much of it or as little of it as possible, or as relevant for them right now. And I'll give you an example. There's this, I can't name the network, very, very well-known household name that's leveraging Fireside to really aggregate his fandom and be able to reach a lot more people, sells out every single show. It's kind of like basically a way to really reach his fans in a much deeper way virtually, and also give them early access to tickets and stuff that the scalpers right now are screwing his fans around. And their audience is like much older skewing, like they barely know how to use their phones. So they're not gonna want to even unpack and try to explain the PSL model, right? That like, this is a membership that you can rent or you can sell or whatever. And they don't want obviously to market it at all as an NFT, nor should they, because we don't, because it's not, it's just a membership or a subscription that provides them whatever value that they've determined. So over time though, they're planning to start to introduce those concepts. First, they just need to introduce them to interactive media. then from the and just a subscription model. Then from there, they're going to evolve it further and leverage those bells and whistles. So to her point, you know, we've all been through these cycles so many different times. It's all noise to me. It's all about where's the value, where's the market opportunity. There is a lot of opportunity right now. And every media company, every brand, they have a Web3 team. They all do. They know that this is the future. So
Web3 is not going anywhere. This is the future.
It is the future.
You know, the fact that the market is not focused on it right now actually is a good thing. We can go and focus on building great companies.
Exactly.
I don't know what year in internet time, if it's 2002, I mean, some of the best companies came out then, you know.
Remember dial-up?
Yeah.
Remember AOL?
Oh, yeah.
Remember now you just go to website. You don't need to hear the whole thing. Like that's where we're at right now with the whole thing. Yeah.
No.
Also, Web3 is hiring like
Yeah.
a lot. Like go to mesh.xyz. There are hundreds of jobs from our portfolio. So if you're looking, let me know.
So let me just quickly ask each of our panelists for any closing remarks, because then we're going to go to official closing remarks that are kind of being beamed in, and then we'll move ahead.
Did we have two questions?
The only thing is that Samsung needs this space back. So if you wouldn't mind, and I don't know if our panelists are going to be available or not afterwards to be able to have more of a conversation and discussion above. Is that okay? Because I'm getting the high sign. I don't want them to throw like tomatoes up here, right? Keith, what do you think? Do we have time to squeeze something in, or should we wrap up? Okay, Keith is like, please wrap up, please wrap up. Okay, I'm really sorry, but maybe Fallon will be nice enough to like hang out a little bit afterwards. You'll have to negotiate that with her.
I feel like we've talked enough, but okay.
We could like go on all night with this, right? These guys are great, but just, you know, really quickly want to go around. Anybody want to say any like kind of final point, what they either think the future is going to be, what they are excited about seeing, what they're fed up of seeing too much of, whatever, like, and then I'm going to
I'm just quickly. I think I've been saying, if you're passionate about something, you should follow that. You should try to do everything you can to do something that you are truly passionate about. If everyone did that, I think that the world would be a better place. So.
Okay. Fallon?
I think right now is the best time to start a company and pursue your dreams. Honestly, there's never been more capital out there. Don't listen to the fucking markets and all that bullshit. I think Web3 unlocks really interesting opportunities where it's a really exciting time, and big companies are going to be created now. So don't take no for an answer.
I mean, obviously what they said, I'm just happy I found 3 people that figured out Web3 so I can figure out how to make so I'm good there. And just always, if you got somebody on the internet that's fired, no one knows about them, please send them our way. We want them.
As I just said, Web3 is hiring. Web3 pays well. They don't care where you are. And the more people that come from non-Web3 backgrounds, I didn't know anything about crypto a year and a half ago, didn't know what Ethereum was. And now I'm here and they're lucky to have me. So we'd be lucky to have you guys.
Love it. You guys, thank you so much. What we're going to do right now is just jump really quickly to some closing remarks that we have wonderfully beamed in from Darnell Strom. He is, and this just happened to be a UTA night. You know, no disrespect to CAA and William Morris, etc. But anyway, he is a partner and head of lifestyle and culture at United Talent. He was going to be here, but he's so fabulous. He's also a board member at the Win, and they have their board meeting today. So Win won, but we're going to just watch him right now very quickly, and then we will close up. So let's have the video, please, now from Darnell.
Good evening, GameChange. I'm sorry I couldn't be there with you tonight, but I am honored that I was asked to give a few closing remarks to end what I'm sure has been a very thought-provoking, interesting, impactful evening of conversations and panels. First, let me talk to you about who I am and what it is that I do. So my name is Darnell Strom, and I am a partner at United Talent Agency, also known as UTA. UTA is one of the world's leading talent and entertainment companies, really working to unite talent, ideas, and opportunities. I had a business at UTA called Culture and Commerce. This division is unique to any of the agencies, and I started it about 4 years ago when I left a competitor to come to UTA. It became very clear to me a number of years back that culture was converging in ways that we had never seen before. entertainment, media, sports, music, fashion, art, politics, social impact, technology, we're all swimming in the same pool. And I wanted to pivot my representation of clients to not just focus on one type of talent, but really zoom out and work with the most relevant and culturally influential figures across all of culture to help build businesses for them that expand their platforms. So whether that be developing content strategy, what do they want to do in TV, film, audio, digital, unique brand partnerships, event and experiential opportunities, and ventures and consumer products. What I've noticed from my work is that the ability to shape and move culture is one of the most valuable currencies, no matter what business you are in. And we are living in a time where now the most influential people who are shaping culture are people of color and women. And it is so important for us to recognize that fact, to talk about that fact, and really embrace and hone the power of that fact. And as we look at the landscape of where technology is going and where media and entertainment are moving, the emergence of new platforms and Web3, AI, NFTs, it is important that we build the foundations of these new platforms in a way that is inclusive and representative of the creative minds and figures who are shaping the trends that drive the way we see the world and live our lives. So we need more leaders to embrace innovation, to embrace entrepreneurship, but also understand the importance of driving cultural impact. What you are doing at GameChange is extremely important. And it is exactly the type of initiative and the type of focus and the type of work that is going to really drive the future of technology, media, and entertainment, because it needs to look as representative of the room that you're sitting in right now, it looks like. My clients are very eclectic. They include people like actress, writer, producer Michaela Cole, influential fashion voices like Edward Enninful, the editor of British Vogue, Aurora James, Carly Kloss, Giselle Bundchen, Chef Jose Andres, Nobel laureate Malala Yousafzai, Stacey Abrams, co-founder of Reddit and founder of 776, Alexis Ohanian, photographer Tyler Mitchell, and more. What all of these people have in common, besides being innovators and entrepreneurs, they believe in inclusion and representation, but they all lead their business with purpose. This is the lens that we should look through when we think about new emerging technologies and new platforms. We have to build the future of these technologies, looking through the lens of purpose, looking through the lens of inclusion and representation. All of you have been doing that work on a day-to-day basis, and all of you have the ability to shape what the future is going to look like and unlock those opportunities for the next generations to come. So thank you for your time. I look forward to meeting all of you in person, and have a good night.
Okay, everybody. So I just want to thank you all so much for coming. Like I said, I don't know, it'll be up to the panelists if they want to, mill about afterwards. But again, just thank you so much. I hope that you have found this as interesting as I have been able to moderate it, and have a great rest of the night.
Thank you.
You gotta